All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. UAB returns home this week, Saturday, October 18th, to host number 22 Memphis. It's the 9th annual Children's Harbor Game. Alex Morenson is the interim head coach, but before we bring up Alex, I'd like to introduce our Director of Athletics, Mark Ingram.
Ted, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We certainly had a difficult day yesterday, but excited to introduce Alex today, our interim head coach. He's been our offensive coordinator, as you know, for the last 2.5 seasons. Our success offensively is very well documented. He's very well liked by our players, very well liked by our staff and those who know him and work with him, and we're excited to have him lead our program for the next 6 football games. So, Coach Mortensen, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, guys. I want to start off saying, certainly didn't expect to be in this position right now, and so a lot of this will be a little bit off the cuff. Just bear with me. But, first of all, I want to, thank Coach Dilfer, for giving me this opportunity to be here as the offensive coordinator. Coach Dilfer really cared about our players a lot, very genuine, poured a lot into them, cared about our staff. I saw that firsthand, working with them very closely on offense, and he's a good coach. He really is. So I'm really grateful to have had an opportunity to work for Coach Dilfer. And secondly, certainly want to thank, Mark Ingram for, expressing the confidence in me and our administration to do this, for the remainder of the season, for the next 6 games. And it's obviously not the circumstances with which, I would want this to happen, but certainly grateful. And then, beyond that, getting on to this week, this is a Children's Harbor game. So there's a great tradition with Children's Harbor here at UAB. It's something that means a lot to a lot of families and a lot of kids. And I think our players have really embraced it. Coach Dilfer put a big emphasis on it here as well. But our players have really embraced it, playing for something bigger than themselves. So certainly that's going to be a big point of emphasis this week for us, is doing a really good job interacting with those families and those children. And we're glad we get to do that. So it's a really great opportunity. And then finally, this thing's really about the players. At the end of the day, a lot of these guys, we got 6 games left. And some of them are this is their last stretch. They're seniors, and this is their last stretch to play college football. And so it's important to us that we send them out the right way. This thing isn't about me. It's not about really anyone else, but, doing a really good job for the university, for the program, and for our players, and doing it the right way for them. And so certainly, excited to try to take on that challenge here for the remainder of the season. Do you guys have any questions?
Start with Steve. Questions, please use the microphone right here.
Alex, for you, how does this sort of change the structure of your day and just kind of structure your job? So what changes now for you, do you think?
Right. Well, I think, there are a variety of things that'll change. They'll taking on head coach responsibilities. I think the good thing is there are certain things that are in place that, we have good department heads that coordinate their respective areas. And so I'm going to try to really be involved with the offense and run the offense, and then take on the head coaching duties the best I can on top of that. So, time management is going to be really important. Scheduling is going to be really important here. But thankfully, we've got a lot of really good people in this organization that I really trust to help.
And when you first heard it, is it when Mark first approached you about taking the interim spot, just sort of went through your mind at that point, and just sort of kind of describe those moments, that moment, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. When Mark came in, look, we wish we would have gotten it done here, but so it was still a surprise. It was still certainly a surprise. And the first thing is just, felt for Coach Dilfer, our program, our players, a lot of people very close to him, both players and staff. So, that was the first thing. And then, secondly, it's, upon us moving on, then it's kind of like, okay, we got to get to work and get ready to go.
Alex, it's obviously, less than 2/3 of a day since the announcement, and now you're the head coach. So probably an unfair question, but answer as best as you can. What do you call upon to fill this role from your past, from anybody? Did you talk to anybody, text anybody to kind of get a lay of the land and how you want to best tackle it?
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's certainly wise to seek counsel, especially in a situation like this. And, some of it is like, I think, there are past experiences, past head coaches, I've worked for, certainly I've learned in my role and experience here too. And then, I've made some phone calls and we'll make some more, certainly, to try to glean some wisdom on how best to handle this. And, but, I've also been doing this for a while too. So you go in with some ideas and some thoughts as to, the way we want to do things. So, so it's a little bit both of coming in with some past experience and knowledge, and then some of it is, the uniqueness of the situation of saying, okay, how do we best handle this? And again, I think the biggest thing is, as you talk to people, and it's really what's on our heart and on as a staff is like, this is about the players. How do we give them the best coaching experience, football experience possible, to close out, the remainder of this season. So, keeping it about them, it really is the most important thing to me.
Kind of going off that, have you reached out to Nick Saban, and what advice has he given to you, and what do you kind of seek to maybe glean from your time with him?
I've not called Coach Saban yet. He when I worked for Coach Saban, I kind of use the same approach I use now, is that you want to save your bullets for when you really need them. And so I certainly plan on calling him. But he was a guy, even when I worked for him, I didn't want to be, knocking on his office door all the time, bugging him. So I didn't turn into the boy who cried wolf. But I think I really enjoyed working for Coach for 9 years, and it was a tremendous experience. And so he has a lot of knowledge, obviously, and very savvy as a leader. So he's certainly someone that, at the right time I want to speak with.
And then you mentioned this being about the players. Just from your vantage point, what's the biggest thing that needs to change over these next few games to kind of send them out the way that you want to send them out?
Right. Yeah. I think, look, obviously I've been working on offense, right, for, my time here. And so, I've got a lot of confidence in our staff. I think we have a really good coaching staff. In all three phases. We obviously have things that we need to do better, and we're going to work internally to figure out how to improve those things. So without going into too much detail, but I think one thing is the one thing we know we can control. We know the players can control, the coaching staff can control, is we can control our effort. And I think making sure that we play with the right kind of effort and intensity. And we talked about this yesterday. That's not just Saturday. That's still Monday through Friday. There's still a price to pay during the week to play the way you want to play Saturday. That doesn't change now. And if anything, we've got to enhance and improve that process. And in terms of the way we approach our work, not that it has been bad either. So that's one thing, is just guys playing hard, practicing hard, the effort part. Then the second thing is sticking together. Unity right now is going to be important. Obviously guys are going to have a lot of individual goals, some of which are trying to play in the NFL. Some of these guys, want to be a UAB Blazer, and they want to ensure that they have an opportunity to play here in the future. And then there are going to be some guys that call it for what it is. They want to go get in the portal at the end of the year and explore. But whatever their goals are, they're best served by, sticking together right now and giving their best. And so I think if we can start there, then we can deal with the football and the specificities of those other things after that.
Alex, have you had a chance to talk with the team yet? If you have, what was that like? And then you mentioned sticking together. How do you get this group to stick together and not just, maybe fade out of focus here after a move like this?
Right. Well, I think, one thing, yes, to answer your first question, I did have an opportunity to speak with the team yesterday. And, it was somber because, again, a lot of these guys, myself included, we're really close to Trent. And I know that, not everyone publicly, gets to know him the way we get to know him. And, like I said, he really did care for the people in this program. And I think he wanted to have success, not just for himself or his own competitiveness. I think he wanted it for us. And so I think when we didn't, I think that, he hurt for the whole program and everyone involved. So you could certainly, it was a somber day. It was tough. And so, I think, at that time, I don't know if it was totally appropriate to, go much beyond that. And, obviously we'll have an opportunity to see the players again today. So, and then I'm sorry, your other.
Yeah, just keeping them dialed in. This is
Yeah.
obviously a big change. How do you try to make sure they stay focused?
Right. I think there's a couple things here. I think, but again, it's not about me, right? It's not about our coaching staff. It's not about playing hard for me, playing hard for, maybe to a degree, playing hard for your position coach. But I think it's about playing hard for each other. I think that's the biggest thing. If they can buy into each other, I think that's more powerful and more important than anything right now. And all these guys fell in love with the game of football long before they ever met their college head coach. It's much bigger than that. And I watch these guys. They worked very hard this offseason. I watched them bond. We all watched them bond together and come together as a group. And so I think the how connected they are, I think is going to drive them, for the rest of the season. And I think that's what it's got to be about. And then I think the second part is, I do think there's some personal pride involved too. The name on the front of the jersey matters, right? The UAB matters. Obviously, this week is a special week with Children's Harbor. That name matters. But even when it's the name on your own back of your jersey, that matters too, because you're representing yourself. And I think every one of these players needs to understand that what do they want their name to be associated with? So I think we have a tremendous amount to play for. We got team goals. We can still go fight to win and compete to get into a bowl game. That's obviously a tall order, and we can only do things 1 week at a time. But there's a lot to try to go accomplish, both collectively and individually. So to me, in terms of being motivated and all that, I don't think there should be any issues there.
What message do you have for Blazer fans heading into these last 6 games?
I think one, I think we want to close. First and foremost, I mean, we hate what happened here, and we wish that we could have gotten it done and helped Coach Dilfer see this thing through. That's the first thing. And then secondly is, we're going to try to represent the program, with pride and with the kind of effort, toughness, discipline that reflects well upon it, and go compete.
I'm sure your mind has gone to your dad and your first chance at a head coaching job, if you can allow to that. If it's personal, it's fine, but if you can allow.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one, I'll say what I've mentioned earlier. It's certainly not the circumstances with which you want to be put in a situation like this when a dear friend, loses a job, and someone that we were all working closely with. We were all doing this together. So I don't. That's the first thing. As it pertains to my dad, I certainly have thought about my dad a lot. I think about him every day, and I was very fortunate. Father-son relationships can be weird. Some people don't know their father. Some people, don't have the best relationship. I hit the lottery. I had an awesome dad, and I was very fortunate to have the father I had. And so, every day that goes by, I go, man, what would my dad think about this right now? What would he tell me to do here? And so this situation is certainly no different. I've thought about him a lot, in the last 12 hours or so, and that's certainly not going to change.
In the ever-changing landscape of college athletics, with so much uncertainty on the horizon, what is your message to recruits and people that want to be associated with this program moving forward with so much uncertainty going on right now?
Right. Yeah, I think UAB is a really attractive program. This is an attractive school. We've got excellent education here. The program's very attractive. It's a very attractive place to live. There are a lot of things going on at UAB that I think should sell well to prospective recruits, and I think that's really the approach a lot of prospects need to take now. And you almost hate saying this, but if you look at a lot of programs, turnover is kind of become the norm, right or wrong. And so I think guys have to be attracted to more than just the staff. And for a long time, it's the relationship with the staff was a driving factor, and I'm not saying that should change, but I think there's a lot of other things that kids should really be excited about with UAB. And so we're certainly those are the things we're going to talk about and sell, and we're going to continue to work there to help build the future of the program.
I know this isn't the opportunity, or this isn't the circumstances that you wanted this opportunity, but this is your first chance as being a head coach. What does that mean to you? And then is that something that you feel like you were kind of considering and ready for at this point in your career?
I'll be honest with you. I've not thought about it a lot. I know that's probably not the typical answer, that you get, but it's something I just haven't given a ton of thought to. And it's maybe a little bit cliche, but I really was focused on the job I've had. And, but, nevertheless, here we are. So going to try to do the best job I can.
And in terms of maybe just suspensions and just players that are out, is it a clean sheet now, or is it you kind of just sticking with?
We're going to, good question in terms of, player suspensions, discipline, things that maybe have happened up to this point. We're going to try to handle those things internally and, in the coming days.
For you, as an offensive coordinator, you have a relationship with the offense, all the players on the offense. Do you have a relationship with defensive players, and will it be structured a little bit where almost like Steve Russ is almost like the defensive head coach and you're the offensive head coach?
Right, yeah, I think I do have a relationship with defensive players, but it's something that I would also say is an area that needs to grow and improve in short order. I definitely want to spend more time with them, and that's not just time collectively as a unit, but that's also with guys one-on-one and individual. I want to get to know more of them on a personal basis too. So I think that's really important, and I've got a ton of confidence in Coach Russ, our defensive staff, to do their job. Like I said, I'm sure we'll have some conversations together about, hey, how do we get this thing right and close it out the right way and get better. And obviously we need to try to do that in a hurry, but certainly have a ton of confidence in him and his staff to go do their jobs here.
And then the seeking counsel from other people or talking to other people. Have you or do you plan on talking to somebody who has done the interim role? I know you've talked to a lot of head coaches, or you will talk to head coaches,
Sure.
but the interim type of head coach, because it's such a unique thing. Have you talked to anybody directly about that?
Yeah, the good question. I will, and I've talked to, guys that have been in head coaching seats. And look, I'll just go and say it. I mean, I've talked to Coach Dilfer too. I mean, he sat in this chair for 2.5 years. So, he's one of the first guys I talked to of the things that he's learned on the job, the things that, he thought he did well, things he would do different, and, how to manage your day. And then I've certainly talked to people outside of him too, that have been head coaches. And then people have been through interim situations. And I think that's, we'll continue to probably talk to a few more people that have been in an interim role. So, because it is a little bit unique. But at the end of the day, like, we got to go play football, and I think that, someone told me a long time ago, one of the best ways to earn the respect of a player is to show that you can help them play better. So we're going to try to do the best things we can, Monday through Friday to help prepare them to play in the game, to play really good football, and it's not to downplay leadership or, bringing the group together. All those things are really important. But I think the first thing, we need to do is get ready to go to work on the practice field and in the meeting room.
We'll take 2 more questions. Julie?
Just kind of off of that, what does that look like? You said you're going to address the team again. What is that first conversation? What do you say now? Is you have to get to work quickly.
Right. I think talking about some things we spoke about earlier in terms of, what do they have to play for? The answer is a whole lot, right? The whole lot. Whether those are our team goals, a lot of which we can still go accomplish, and buying into playing hard and playing for each other and playing for the seniors, playing for the guys that are on their way out. And then also, their individual goals. Guys, I mentioned earlier, but whether they're trying to play in the NFL, whether they're looking at the transfer portal, or whether they want to continue to be a UAB Blazer, the way they create value for themselves in all those areas is to go give your very best. And that's as a football player, that's also as a person, and that's academically. So I think those are the things that, I'm going to really emphasize. And then I think the other part too here is that, we've got to lead as a staff, but the players have got to lead too. It's going to be important that they band together, probably far more important than we do. The best teams I've ever been around were ultimately player-led teams. So, I'm anxious to see, those guys step up too.
On the field, I mean, we've seen the record, we've seen the empty seats. For fans of this program that care about this program, what is a message of hope maybe on the field that, I don't know if you're going to coach with house money or it's kind of nothing to lose mentality, but for someone that's looking for some hope on the football field, are you going to try to shake things up offensively, defensively, so that when they show up Saturday against Memphis, there's going to be a product on the field that they could be proud of?
Right. Well, look, I would say this. I mean, we're obviously, this has happened fast, and we're going to be 1 week away, less than a week away from playing Memphis, who, Memphis has got a very good team. They have a really good program. Certainly, have a lot of respect for them, and we've been working on them hard over the last day. They've got a lot of good players. They're well coached. And they're up front, just watching them on defense. They're physical. They do a good job controlling the line of scrimmage, creating negative plays. They got length. They've got speed in the back end. So, we're doing everything we can to prepare for them and get ready to go. And so, we'll go put our best effort and try to get. One, this being the Children's Harbor game, it's a big deal. Obviously, it's a battle for the bones. So, so there's a lot to get excited about for a game like this, and we're ready to go take it on.
All right, thank you. Alex and Mark Ingram will be available for a couple minutes after this.
Thanks, guys.